Okay. So before we start going question by question, finding out the questions and answers, let's understand the agile process. And once we got that idea, then the questions will be very simple for us to understand. Okay. So let us understand how this diagram represent a Scrum framework. Okay. So by just having look around this diagram, you can definitely have understand how a Scrum will work in real time, and we will find out how that happens. Okay. So here you can see there is a client and stakeholder. You can follow my cursor. Okay. So we have a client and stakeholder. They have some idea in their mind to build a software, right? So maybe they are thinking another or food delivery apps like Zomato. Okay. So they want someone to build that, and that someone needs to understand what they are thinking, right? So for them to understand, they need to provide some documents, and in the document, they should have why this project started, what problems this project is solving, who are the target audience, and so on. Okay, so the document is nothing but product vision. Okay, you can see right product vision under the arrow. So that product vision is a document which a client or a stakeholder will share us with the software or the organization who is okay to build that application. Okay, so once team members understand the product vision document, the client and the product owner and business analyst sit together in a user story workshop to create a user stories. Okay. So what is a user story? So user stories is nothing but a piece of requirement. Okay. In our waterfall concepts, we thought requirements will be in a documentation format, right? So BRDs, FRS and FRS, right? But in caption projects, it will be user stories. So every requirement will be designed as a user story, and that user story has a format. Okay. So that format is, as a user, I want to achieve something so that I can get this benefit. So I'm gonna show you in the everyone chart. As a user, I want to log in so that I can order my food. Okay. So let me. Okay. So I have typed something in the chat box. Please look into it. So a typical user story will follow this order. Okay. So as a user, here user will be changed according to the requirement. So if we are talking a requirement in the user's perspective, then it is as a user. If not, it can be as a admin, as a delivery boy, as a restaurant. So it depends upon who you are trying to uh, create a requirement accordingly. Okay. And then you have next line, which is I want to log in. So I want to log in is nothing but what that user want, what functionality that role want. So here the user want a login functionality, and why he needed that login functionality. Once that login is completed, what he can do, he can order a food. Okay, he can order something in the platform. So that is benefit. So we have role, we have need, and benefit. Okay. So we have role, need, benefit. As a, that will be role. So in that role, we can use user, admin, restaurant, delivery boy, whatever we need. And I want to log in. That is a functionality or that is a need. So you can include that login with maybe uh, address form, or you can say that I want to add my address so that delivery can reach me, so that you can mention like that. Okay. And the benefit is what you are getting at the end, right? And then each user story contains complexity points, or which is called story points, and we have business values and acceptance criteria. Okay. So each story point contains CP, which means complexity points, SP or story points. Both are similar. And BV is business value and AC is acceptance criteria. So acceptance criteria for a user story is nothing but these are the set of conditions we mentioned on a user story, making sure that user story uh, will be testable, and we can say for sure that the user story is completed successfully. Okay. So let me give an example. When we say as a user I want to log in so that I can order my food, We don't know what exactly, we don't know when we can say that user story is completed successfully. Maybe user can log in, but there is no forgot password option. At that case scenario also, the functionality is working as per your user story. Developer are created a login functionality and ordering functionality, but he missed forgot password. Okay, so then we can't argue with him because he did what you tried exactly in your user story. So in that cases, you need to mention acceptance criteria, which are conditions to say that user story completed successfully. So once all these conditions are completed, then the user story also will automatically get completed. So acceptance criteria for a login can be like uh, the user ID and email and password should valid enter should allow valid information. Password should be 8 characters in length. There should be an option called forgot password, and login should be done within 2 seconds. OTP should be shared within 2 minutes to a email. So these are all the steps related to that user story. Okay, so these are all the conditions related to that user story. So when these all conditions are met, then we can say for sure that user story is completed successfully. Okay, so that is an acceptance criteria. In short, they are nothing but the condition that tell us whether the user story is completed successfully or not. Okay, and then we have BV and CP. BV are nothing but business value. Business value will be given by the business value will be given by the business owner with collaboration of product owner. Okay, so what is this BV means? We There are hundreds of user story for a product. Okay, for a software there will be hundreds and maybe thousands of user story based on the size of the product. We don't know which one is high priority, which one is low priority, right? So BV tells that I higher the BV value, higher the priority of a user story. Okay. So BV is nothing but business value, which tells us how important that user story for the business in terms of financial. Okay. So let's take our restaurant thing only. Okay. So for the tab, uh, option like a future like restaurants can sign up to their account. Restaurant then create their account to a app is very important, because without a restaurant, even if you created login details, feedbacks and everything, it it doesn't provide that much of financial help, right? So that restaurant sign up feature is very important for us in a financial term, for us in the sense the client. So then the future that user story will have highest BV value. Okay, and this BV value will be the currency notes that are currently we are using in our real time. Okay, we have notes like 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 50, 100, 500, right? So in Scrum, they will have some custom made notes, and business owners will place these notes on a user story based on their thinking whether it is important or not. Okay, and these are not fixed values. It's not like once we state them we have to make it at the end. No, based on the prioritization the values will keep on changing. And again we have CP and SP. CP or SP, okay, story points or complexity points. So these values will be given by the developers, and these will tell us how much efforts required to complete that user story. Okay, so user story is nothing but a piece of functionality, right? So to complete that functionality, how much efforts required by a developer can be estimated by this SP value, story points. Okay, so the story points will follow Fibonacci series, such as 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. Okay, so the numbers will be previous two numbers should be add to get the next number. So these numbers will tell us how much efforts required for a user story. Higher the story points, higher the efforts required for a user story. Okay, and then once user story workshop has been completed, they have created all the user stories. They will move them to the product backlog. Okay, you can see the product backlog with a large rectangle shape, right? So this is a product backlog. Here you can see in between they have Moscow, MVP, high BB, low CP. These are all the prioritization technique. So once you move your user stories into the product backlog, they need to be prioritized each and every time so that we are up to date. Okay, so Moscow is nothing but must, should, could, and would. So must in the sense the futures which are definitely needed right now, and should are futures are needed uh, they can wait, but they have to be implemented. Good, these features are okay to implement, and would means even though we have late, even though if you leave them a bit, it's not a problem. So would will be like that. So based on these sections, we will rearrange all the user stories. Okay, and MVP, minimum viable product. So it is nothing but a prioritization technique that will bring up all the core functionalities of a future or the core functionality of a product on the top. Okay. So MVP is minimum viable product, which means it makes sure that product is at least functioning the core idea. So let's take this Zomato app itself. The core idea is user should log in, restaurant should log in, they should person should put an order, restaurant should take an order, and delivery boy should return that order to a person. So these are the core functionalities that a system should have. So what MVP do means, only these functionalities will move upwards and remaining will come down. So that up things will be high priority to work on. Okay, and later remaining things like feedback, AI integration, auto detection of your area, and the chat box with the rider, all those are extra things to have nice, but those can wait later on. Okay, and we have high BB and low CP. So we all know, right? BB is a business value. So user stories with high BB value, low CP value will move upwards and remaining will come down. Okay, so once product backlog has been prioritized, we will start a sprint. So what is a sprint? Sprint is nothing but a 2 weeks of time period. Okay, it's not like a 2 weeks. It can be up to 1 to 4 weeks. Okay, yes, and the better way is like sprint is a time box event where we try to produce a working software piece. Okay, a working shippable product increment. Okay, so when we start a sprint, we have a sprint planning. Okay, sprint planning, sprint retrospective, sprint review, scrum meeting. These are all the meetings in that sprint. Okay, another name for meetings is ceremonies. So when people say what are the scrum ceremonies, don't get confused. They're actually talking about meetings. Okay, so sprint planning is nothing but before you start a sprint, people will come together like a Scrum team and the product owner, BA, Scrum Master, devs and QA team will come together and they will start defining the goal of the sprint. So in this fixed 2 weeks, what we need to produce. So is it a login feature? Is it a auto detection feature? Is it address feature? So what feature is the goal of the sprint? Okay, and then they will start taking that user stories from the product backlog to the sprint backlog. So according to that goal, they will be taking that user stories from product backlog to sprint backlog, and then they start the sprint to work on. Okay, and then you can see there is a PBI, product backlog item, and there is a task and work in progress and done. So they will move their user stories accordingly. At the end, once they are done, they move to the done stage. Okay, team, just give me 1 minute. Okay, so they will moving these user stories across PBA, task, VIP, WIP, and done. Okay, so what happens is that once this is done, there is a Scrum meeting. Scrum meeting in the sense every day they have to attend a meeting, which is also called daily stand-up meeting. What happens? Uh, there is a 15 minutes of time, and each developer and QA team comes together and says that what they have done yesterday, what they are doing today, and what are the impediments they are facing. So the impediments are nothing but the problems they are facing. Okay, so here. Uh, by knowing this, the Scrum Master will noting down all the problems the team is facing, and he will try to reduce those problems so that the sprint continues smoothly. Okay. And then we have sprint review meeting. So once a sprint is completed, you will get a shippable product increment. You can see bottom here, shippable product increment. So that is nothing but a product that is a future working future. Okay, so that future will be moved to the client. Okay, and client will give us some feedback, and based on that feedback you will again create a user story, you will again push it to the product backlog, again you will move to this next sprint based on the urgency. So whenever they see any bugs or whenever they see any changes, this is how those changes will be happened. Okay, it's not like they will put those changes directly into the sprint. No, they will move them to the product backlog, and then they will move to the next sprint based on the urgency. Okay, and then we have sprint retrospective. So sprint retrospective meeting is nothing but internal meeting where only your organization people will participate, like PO, BA, and development and QA. So they will sit together and try to understand what problems they have faced in that sprint. So they will gather all those information in a document, and they will use that document in next sprint planning meeting so that they don't repeat these problems once again. Okay, so maybe last sprint they find out the resources are low and bandwidth is low, and maybe we need a few extra front end developers. So all those things will be noted down. In the next sprint we will try to request another team member from the other team for a cross functionality. Okay, so that's how sprint retrospective works. And you can see there is a product grooming, right? So client and product grooming after sprint review, you can see what happens is that the refinement of product backlog is, which is nothing but product grooming. So when they say product grooming or backlog refinement, they means the prioritization of product backlog. Okay, so this is how a scrum works. So team, have you got the idea how a actual scrum works? Please respond so that we can start with the questions. So easy way in the sense, all those topics are definitely to memorize, because those are all ceremonies, and how user story is created and everything is a part of agile. So there is no easy way. And maybe one thing you can say, client give us product vision, we will create a user stories, we will move them product backlog, sprint will started, and we will work on those user items, user stories. And at the end of the sprint, you will have a working future. So you can remember like that. Okay, right. And what about others? Team, please respond. Have we got cleared of this cycle? Please text me in the chat box. Hello, Manoj, Harminder, Jyoti, Suresh, Acharya. Any doubts on the cycle? No, unfortunately we don't have that kind of role play. Okay, yes, for industry wise it is standard. Okay, right. Okay, then thank you. So we will start with the questions. So question number one, they're asking you to prepare a agile manifesto. Okay. Yeah, we will think of it. Okay, we will give that idea to the management and we will see. Okay. Yeah. So first question is they're asking about write agile manifesto. So agile manifesto in the sense you have that four principles and sorry four core ideas and 12 principles, right? You need to write that question for the Scrum Foods. And your second question will be, I think, just a minute. So here you can see, right, the format of user stories and BV, CP, acceptance criteria, and all priority also. So question number two is asking you to prepare 40 user stories with their acceptance criteria and BV and CP. So the number is very important. You have to create 40. Okay. And next one is what is an epic and write two epics. So Epics are nothing but large body of work that cannot be completed in a single sprint. So user stories are nothing but functionality, right? I keep a piece of a requirement where you can complete it in within a sprint, the 2 weeks of time. So when a functionality came and that is cannot be done in a single sprint, then we call it as a epic. Okay, so you will break down the epic, and that epic will be breakdowns into user stories, and you will try to complete that user stories in a sprint so that the epic will be get completed. Okay, and what is the difference between BV and CP? So we already find what is BV and CP, right? And explain about sprint. So what we learned about the diagram. So what is sprint time, sprint time period, participants of the sprint, write all those things here. Explain product backlog and sprint backlog. So we learned that product backlog is an entire user stories of a product will be stored in that product backlog, and they will keep on refining them. And sprint backlog is backlog which has only the user stories for that specific sprint. So whatever user stories they are working on that sprint, they will have only those user stories on the sprint backlog. Okay. Scrum value is nothing but the size of the team. Okay. And sprint value is the time period. Okay. And what is impediment log? Right to impediments. So impediments or blockages, problems, issues, everything is the same. So these are the challenges they are facing by the team. Okay, impediments are nothing but challenges facing by the team. So impediment log is nothing but a kind of a backlog itself, where we will store all the impediments of the team, which is reviewed by the scrum master, and he will try to resolve those impediments so that team won't get any issues. Sprint burn down and burn up chart. So team, so for sprint burn up and burn down chart, so go to YouTube. Okay, type COEPD. So come to videos, type here Jira. Okay, so you have a Jira session here. Let me copy this. Okay, and so I already share you Jira session related video. You need to watch the Jira session video, and you need to create user stories in the Jira, and that user stories will be automatically created by sprint burn down and burn up chart. Okay. So sprint burn up and burn down chart will be created by Jira. So you will also get a hands-on experience how to work with Jira. If you're having any doubts on the Jira, please watch that session. It is an end-to-end session how to open Jira to how to create a sprint burn down and burn up chart. You will get all the details there. Still, if you are facing any doubts, please join DCS. They will clarify those doubts. Okay. And yeah, our next question will be velocity of the team. So velocity of the team is nothing but, so it is a value like the completed story points, total completed story points of the team on the completed sprint. So let's say the sprint one is completed, and the entire team completed uh, 10 user stories, and each stories have 5 story points. Okay, and the velocity of the team will be 5 into 10, 50. Okay. So why we need this velocity of the team? Velocity of the team will tell us what is the efficiency of the team, whether they are completing the committed work or not. So let's the 10 user stories they picked, whether they completed at the end or not. If they completed, okay, we can understand, okay, they are uh, have that capacity to complete the committed work, so that we can increase one or two works in the next sprint. If they're not even completing their committed work also, we need to think of ways. Okay. So velocity of the team is nothing but total story points or total complexity complexity points covered in a sprint. Okay, sprint burn up and burn down charts, similar thing. You need to use Jira tool. And the product grooming. So product grooming is nothing but product backlog refinement. So which we understood, right? MVP and Moscow, high BV, low CP. Based on that, you will just prioritize the requirements so that you will be on the up-to-date requirements to implement. Roles of Scrum Master and Product Owner. So the product owner is the one who will be interacting with the client, who will be getting the requirements from the client. But the Scrum Master is a kind of coach to the team. So he will not interact with the client, but he will interact with the Scrum team, and he will guide the team to follow Agile principles. So you have the total 12 principles and 4 values, right? So he will make sure that the team follows the principles, and whatever issues the team is facing, he will try to resolve them. Okay, so that's why we call Scrum Master as a coach of the team. And we have all the meetings conducted in a Scrum. So we have sprint planning, sprint retrospective, sprint review, Scrum, and daily stand-up meeting, right? So you need to write about all those things. Sprint size, the time of the sprint, maybe 2 weeks, 1 week, based on the size of the project. Scrum size is nothing but the value of the count of your Scrum team. Okay, size and value is similar, not no any changes. DOR and DOD. So DOR, definition of ready, DOD, definition of done. So definition of ready is used in sprint planning meeting. Let me show you here clearly. So here you can see product backlog, right? And can see sprint backlog. So when a sprint is started, they will move user stories from product backlog to sprint backlog, right? So before they moving, they will check a checklist, and the checklist is nothing but DOR, definition of ready. So in that definition of ready, what will happen? What will have means uh, something like whether all the user stories have acceptance criteria, whether all the user stories has BB and CP, whether all the stories are prioritized or not, are they or have enough resources to work with. So these are all the checklist. So before they move a user story from product backlog to sprint back, they will just cross check all the things. And once every user story follow that checklist, then they move them to sprint backlog. Okay. And the DOD, definition of done means before they move a user story into the done stage. Done means completely done. They don't open that user story once again. So before they even move that user story to the done stage, they have another checklist which is called definition of done. In that checklist, what happens is that they will have all the details like whether QA team has tested this or not, whether the user story performing under the requirement or not, whether it related to uh, whether it is aligning to business value or not. So they will have all those conditions on the DBOD, and once a user story actually pass all those conditions, then they will move from work in progress to done stage. Okay, and then we have just a minute. Prioritization technique and MVP. So yeah, prioritization technique, we have that Moscow MVP, high BB, low CP, right? You need to write about those things here. And difference between business analyst and product owner. So product owner, we already find that he will interacting with the client and bring this user story, not requirements. And BA need to collaborate with the product owner to create a to create user stories. Okay, so he will come up with the ideas, he will come up with the values and all, and he is the one who oversees the development team whether they are building the right product or not. Okay, so maybe they can create a future, but as a BA you need to make sure that future is aligning with the business rule or not. Okay, so that is the work of business analyst. And yeah, finally you need to prepare a resume portraying yourself. You have 3 years of experience as a product owner. Okay, so there won't be any evaluation on question number 17, but remaining things will be evaluated based on your answer sheet. Okay, any doubts team, please respond in the chat box.